Mama, hold on. I will save you. Open your mouth and drink some water.
Please save me.
Yes, Mama. I will save you.
Help! Me! Felix froze in the middle of the narrow path, his cutlass hanging loosely in his right hand. His hoe rested on his shoulder. Sweat ran down his face and stung his eyes. He had been walking back from his farm outside Abajukalo, a small town in Kogi State, where the morning sun was always too hot. A voice coming from the bush. Felix looked left. Thick leaves and tall grass. The kind of bush people warned you about when you were a child because of snakes and mad people. He took one slow step backward. Then he heard it again, clearer this time. Please. His heart kicked hard against his ribs. Felix swallowed. Who is there? He called, trying to sound brave, but his voice came out small. No answer, just a soft, shaky moan. His legs wanted to run. His brain was already giving him an excuse. Felix, you are a poor farmer. If you enter that bush and anything happens, who will help you? Nobody. He even turned his body halfway, ready to keep walking. Then the sound changed. It wasn't just a cry anymore. It sounded like a person losing their last strength. Felix's face tightened. His mouth went dry, and something inside him, something stubborn and soft, refused to let him walk away. He sighed, angry at himself. God help me, he whispered. Then he stepped into the bush. The leaves slapped his arms as he pushed through. The deeper he went, the quieter the world became, like the town had been swallowed behind him. He moved slowly, careful where he placed his feet. A branch snapped. Felix jumped, his cutlass lifted high, but it wasn't a person, just dry wood. He exhaled and kept going. Then he saw it, a shape on the ground. At first it looked like a pile of clothes, yellow lace, dirty and torn. Then his eyes adjusted and his stomach dropped. It was an old woman. Her head was tilted sideways and her grey hair was scattered like she had rolled on the ground. Mud was on her neck, hands, her feet. Her chest rose, barely. Felix stood there, stunned, like the air had turned heavy around him. Mama, he said without thinking, because in Nigeria, any old woman is Mama. He rushed closer and dropped to his knees. Her lips were cracked. Her face looked sunken. Her eyes were closed, but her eyelids were twitching like she was fighting to stay alive. Felix's hands shook. He touched her shoulder lightly. Mama, can you hear me? No response. Felix looked around like a mad person, as if the kidnappers or whoever did this might jump out from behind a tree. Nothing, just bush. Silence. And the woman's faint breath. Felix's mind raced. Clinic, water, help. He remembered something quickly, something small and normal that suddenly became important. The rubber bottle. He always carried it when he went to the farm. Not because he had plenty water, but because a man must drink something under the sun. Felix dropped his farming tools fully this time. The hoe fell with a soft thud. The cutlass fell beside it. He pulled the small rubber bottle from the side of his bag. His fingers fumbled with the cap. Open, open, he whispered like a prayer. He opened it. There wasn't much water left, not even half. Still, it was something. Felix gently used one hand to support the woman's jaw, trying not to hurt her. With the other, he carefully opened her mouth. He poured a little water. Nothing happened. He poured another little. Her throat moved, just once. Felix leaned closer, watching her face like it was the most important thing in the world. Please, he said softly, drink, just small. He poured again. This time her eyelids fluttered, and slowly, painfully. She opened her eyes. They were cloudy and tired, but they were alive. Her gaze found Felix's face. She stared at him like she didn't trust what she was seeing. Felix blinked fast. Tears surprised him. They rose quickly, hot and heavy, like his heart had been holding them back. Mama, you're okay, he whispered, even though she clearly wasn't. The woman's lips trembled. Her hand lifted slightly, weak, shaky, and touched Felix's wrist like she needed to confirm he was real. Then she whispered so quiet Felix almost missed it. Please, save me. That sentence hit Felix like a stone, not because it was dramatic, but because it was simple. A person begging for life. Felix nodded hard, as if nodding could replace strength. Yes, he said. Yes, Mama, I will save you. He looked around again. Still nothing, only bush, and that made it worse, because whoever did this was confident. They left her here like she was rubbish. Felix's jaw tightened. He slipped his arm behind her back and tried to lift her. She was lighter than she should be. That scared him. He carried her carefully, her head resting against his chest. Her body felt hot and cold at the same time. Felix staggered as he stepped back onto the path. His tools remained on the ground. He didn't even look at them. In that moment, farming didn't matter. Money didn't matter. Only her breathing mattered. He started running. The road to the village clinic felt longer than it ever had before. Felix's feet hit the sand hard. His slippers threatened to tear. His arms ached. His chest burned. But he kept going. People stared as he passed. "Felix, wet-in happen," someone shouted. Felix didn't stop. "Help me, clinic," he shouted back, his voice cracking. A woman selling groundnuts stood up fast. "Jesus, who be that?" Felix ran past. He could hear murmurs behind him, questions, fear, gossip beginning to grow like fire. By the time he reached the small clinic, a low building with faded paint and a signboard that read Aisha Primary Health Center, his legs were shaking. He burst inside. "Nurse, nurse," he shouted. Two nurses rushed out from a side room. One was short and round with sharp eyes. The other was younger, with a headscarf tied tight. "What happened?" the older nurse demanded. Felix's mouth opened. No words came out at first. He was breathing too hard. I found her inside bush," he forced out. She was dying. Please help her." The nurses immediately took the woman from him and placed her on a small stretcher. "She's dehydrated," the younger nurse said quickly, checking her pulse. The older nurse's eyes narrowed. "Where exactly did you find her?" Felix pointed, still panting. "The bush near the farm path. She was unconscious. I gave her water small." The nurses moved fast, their hands sure. They carried her into the inner room. Felix stood in the doorway for a second, helpless. Then the older nurse turned sharply. "Felix," she said, "you bring patient. You know payment will follow." Felix swallowed again. Of course, this was Nigeria. Even kindness needed. Money. His hands were empty. His pocket was almost empty too. "I will bring it," he said quickly. "I will bring what I have." The older nurse studied him, like she wanted to say your money cannot do anything, but she didn't. She just nodded. "Go, but hurry." Felix ran home. His house was small, 2 rooms, weak zinc roof, and a door that didn't close well unless you hit it twice. Inside it smelled like dry cassava and smoke. Felix went straight to where he kept his money, wrapped inside an old black nylon, hidden in a cracked plastic bowl. He opened it. The money inside looked insulting. Small notes, folded, tired. He counted with shaking fingers. Not much, but it was all he had. He didn't even sit down. He grabbed it, then rushed to his cooking corner, scooped some Gary into a small bag, added groundnut and a tiny sachet of sugar, his own food for the next 2 days. He stopped for a second. His chest tightened. Am I doing too much? What? If this woman is a trap? What if her people will accuse me? That thought hit him like cold water. In this country, doing good could still bring trouble. Felix stared at his hands. His right hand had a faint mark on it, a birthmark he had always had since he was a child, a small, curved shape, like a tiny moon. He looked away quickly, annoyed at himself. Stop thinking. Move. He grabbed the bag of food and the money and rushed back to the clinic. When Felix returned, he found the nurses calmer. The woman was now lying on a bed with a drip in her hand. Her breathing looked steadier. Her face still looked weak, but she didn't look like she was about to disappear anymore. Felix's knees almost gave way from relief. He stepped closer. "Mama," he whispered. Her eyes opened slowly and she turned her head slightly toward him. This time she could speak better. "You," she said, voice thin. "You saved me." Felix's throat tightened again. "Thank God," he whispered. "Thank God you're alive." The older nurse walked up to him. "Bring payment?" Felix quickly handed her the folded notes. She counted. Her face didn't change, but she nodded. "Okay." This will cover some things. Felix also handed the food to the younger nurse. I brought this for her, he said. Please, give her when she can eat. The younger nurse looked surprised, not mocked, just surprised, like she didn't expect kindness from a poor farmer. Okay, she said softly. We will. Felix stood there for a moment, not knowing if he should leave. The woman watched him, then she asked, What is your name? Felix, he answered. She repeated it slowly, like she was storing it carefully. Felix. Then she closed her eyes again. Felix stood there, staring at her, feeling something strange in his chest. Not pride, not happiness, more like a quiet fear. Because whoever left an old woman to die inside a bush would not be a small person. And Felix had just entered the story of someone he didn't know, someone dangerous. Outside the clinic, he could already hear people talking. What if they are ritualists? Maybe kidnappers? Why old woman for bush? Felix will be in trouble, oh. Felix stepped out and looked up at the evening sky. The sun was going down and the air was becoming cooler. But Felix didn't feel cool. He felt like something had started, something big. And he didn't know how to stop it. He walked home slowly, his body tired, his mind louder. That night he didn't sleep well, because in his dream he kept hearing the same words. Please, save me. And every time he tried to run toward the voice, the bush became thicker, darker, and someone else was inside it. Watching, Felix woke up before dawn, sweating. Then he heard a sharp knock on his door. Not a normal knock, a hard, angry knock, as if the person outside wasn't asking to enter, but demanding it. Felix sat up, heart racing. He reached for his cutlass, and the knock came again, this time stronger. Then a voice shouted from outside, Felix, open this door now. Felix froze, because he recognized the voice. It wasn't a neighbor, it sounded like a police officer. The knock came again, harder. Felix's heart jumped like it wanted to leave his chest. Felix, open up. He sat on the edge of his thin mattress, breathing fast. The room was still dark. Early morning light had not yet entered through the small window. The zinc roof above him clicked softly as the cold air touched it. Police. That was what his mind kept shouting. Police. His hand shook as he reached for the cutlass beside his bed. Not to fight, just to feel something solid. Felix, the voice outside shouted again, we no get all day. Felix swallowed. He stood up slowly and walked to the door. Each step felt heavy, like his feet were sinking into the floor. Coming, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. He opened the door. Two men stood outside. One wore a faded police uniform, his cap tilted slightly to the side. The other was in plain clothes, tall, broad, with eyes that looked like they had seen too much. Felix's chest tightened. Yes, he asked quietly. The uniformed officer looked him up and down. His eyes paused on Felix's bare feet, his old shirt, the dirt still under his fingernails. You be Felix? The officer asked. Yes, sir. You rescued an old woman yesterday, the man in plain clothes said. It wasn't a question. Felix nodded slowly. Yes, sir. I found her inside the bush. The two men exchanged a look. Felix became scared. This is it, he thought. This is where trouble begins. The officer cleared his throat. Relax. You are not under arrest. Felix didn't relax. The officer continued. The woman is awake. She is asking for you. Felix blinked. Asking for me? Yes, the officer said. Come with us to the clinic. Felix hesitated. Did I do something wrong? The man in plain clothes studied him closely. His eyes softened a little. No, he said. If anything, you did something right. Felix let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He nodded. Let me wear my slippers. The walk to the clinic felt strange. People were already awake. Women swept their front yards. A man pushed a wheelbarrow. Children in oversized uniforms walked toward school. But all eyes followed Felix. Some whispered, That's him. The farmer. The one that carried that woman. Police has come for him. He shouldn't have risked his life for a stranger. Now he's in trouble. Felix kept his head down. Inside the clinic, the smell of medicine mixed with early morning tea. The nurses looked up when Felix entered. She's here, the younger nurse said. She's been asking for you since morning. They led him into the small ward. Mama Felicia was sitting up on the bed now, a thin blanket covering her legs. The drip was gone. Her face still looked tired, but there was life in her eyes. When she saw Felix, her eyes filled with tears. "My son," she said softly. Felix stopped in his tracks. Something about the way she said it, "my son," made his chest ache. He stepped closer. "Mama, how do you feel?" She reached out and held his hand. Her grip was weak, but firm enough to mean something. "If not for you," she said, her voice shaking, "I would not be here." Felix looked down, embarrassed. "I only did what anyone should do." She shook her head slowly. "Not everyone would enter that bush." The nurses stepped back, giving them space. Mama Felicia took a deep breath. "I am strong enough to go home today," she said, "but before I leave, I needed to see you." Felix nodded. "Thank God." She studied his face. Carefully, like she was trying to memorize it. "Where do you live?" she asked. Felix pointed toward the direction of his house. "Not far, near the old mango tree." She nodded. "Good, I will remember." Felix helped her stand. He supported her as they walked slowly outside. A taxi was already waiting, arranged by the clinic. Felix opened the door for her. She held his hand again before entering. "May God reward your kindness," she said, her eyes shining. "May your good heart never lead you to sorrow." Felix felt his throat tighten. "Amen," he whispered. The taxi drove away, leaving dust behind. Felix stood there for a long moment, watching until it disappeared. He didn't know that those words, "May God reward your kindness," were already beginning to answer themselves. When Mama Felicia arrived at the mansion gate, the guard almost dropped his phone. "Mama!" he shouted, jumping up. "Mama is back!" The gate opened wide. Inside the compound, everything was neat and quiet. Tall walls, green grass, cars that shined even without sunlight. A woman ran out of the house barefoot. "Mama!" she cried. Felicia, powerful, respected, known across Lagos, forgot her title, her money, her pride. She wrapped her arms around her mother and broke down. "I thought I lost you," she sobbed. Mama Felicia held her daughter tightly. "God kept me." They went inside. In the living room, Mama Felicia told her story. The gate, the strangers, the darkness, the bush. "And then," she said, "I woke up and saw a young man giving me water. He carried me to the clinic. He paid. He brought food." Felicia's eyes widened. "Who is he?" she asked. "A farmer," Mama said. "His name is Felix." Felicia stood up slowly. "We will find him," she said firmly. "And we will also find who did this to you." Her voice was calm, but inside her eyes, something dangerous had awakened. Back in Abejucolo, Felix tried to return to normal life. He went back to his farm. He picked weeds. He worked under the sun, but his mind kept drifting. At night, he thought about the woman, about her eyes, about the way she said, "my son." He shook his head. "Stop thinking," he muttered to himself. 3 days later, a black SUV rolled into the village. Children stopped playing. Men stood up. Women peeped from windows. The SUV stopped in front of Felix's house. Felix was sitting outside, repairing a broken basket. He froze. The door opened. A well-dressed woman stepped out. Elegant. Calm. Powerful. She looked out of place in the dusty village road. Felix stood up slowly. "Are you Felix?" she asked. "Yes, Ma." "My name is Felicia," she said. "I am Mama Felicia's daughter." Felix's heart skipped. "She told me about you," Felicia continued. "May we come in?" Felix stepped aside. "Please." They entered the small house. Mama Felicia followed. Behind, walking carefully. When Felix saw her again, he smiled. "Mama?" She smiled back. They sat. Felicia's eyes moved around the room, the bare walls, the simple furniture. She turned back to Felix. "Thank you," she said, "for saving my mother." Felix nodded, unsure what to say. As Mama Felicia reached for water, her eyes caught something, Felix's hand. She froze, her gaze fixed on the small curved birthmark near his wrist. Her breath caught. Felicia noticed. "Mama?" she asked. Mama Felicia stood slowly and walked closer to Felix. She took his hand gently. "This mark," she whispered. "You were born with it." Felix nodded. "Yes, Mama, since I was small." Mama Felicia's knees almost gave way. Felicia stepped forward. "What is it?" Mama Felicia turned her trembling hand and showed her daughter the same mark on her own wrist. Felicia's eyes widened. The room went quiet. Too quiet. Felix looked from one face to the other. "What? What is happening?" he asked. Felicia swallowed hard. "Felix," she said slowly, "do you know your parents?" Felix shook his head. "No, I grew up in an orphanage." Mama Felicia's tears fell freely now. Felix felt the world tilt. Felicia whispered, "We need to go to the hospital." Felix sat in the back of the SUV, his hands shaking as the engine started. Mama Felicia held his hand tightly. Felicia stared straight ahead. No one spoke, because they all knew. If the test said what their hearts already feared, then Felix's entire life was about to be rewritten. The hospital smelled clean and cold. Felix noticed it immediately as the glass doors slid open. The air inside felt different from the dusty village air he was used to. Here everything echoed, footsteps, whispers, even fear. He sat between Felicia and Mama Felicia on a long metal bench. The black SUV was now parked outside, guarded by two men who said nothing and watched everything. Felix kept rubbing his palms together. Birthmark, hospital, DNA test. These were words he never imagined would sit inside the same sentence with his name. Mama Felicia held his hand the whole time, not tight, just enough to say, "I'm here." Felicia stood up and spoke with the receptionist. Her voice was calm, controlled, but Felix noticed how often she swallowed. Even powerful people swallowed fear the same way everyone else did. Soon a nurse called them in. The room was bright, white walls, a small table, needles, bottles. Felix's stomach turned. The doctor smiled gently. "We just need small samples. Blood, it will be quick." Felix nodded. He had worked on farms since childhood. He wasn't afraid of pain. Still, this felt heavier than pain. As the needle touched his skin, Felix looked away. Mama Felicia didn't. She watched his face closely, like she was counting every breath he took. When it was over, she offered her arm too. Her hand shook, slightly. Felicia followed. 3 samples, 3 lives hanging on a result they could not control. The doctor labeled the tubes carefully. "It will take some time," he said. "You can wait or we will call you." Felicia nodded. "We'll wait." Waiting felt longer than farming under the hot sun. They sat in silence at first. Then Mama Felicia spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I had twins," she said. Felix's head lifted. Felicia turned to her mother slowly. "Mama?" "I carried 2 children," Mama Felicia continued, "a boy and a girl." Felix felt something strange move inside him. "My husband, Adam," she said, "was a good man, a kind man. He was contesting for a federal position then. People were angry. Power was at stake." Her eyes grew distant. "The night I gave birth, I was tired. Weak, happy. Then, chaos." Felicia leaned forward. "Mama, you never told me this part." Mama Felicia nodded. "I was afraid. Afraid of reopening wounds." She looked at Felix now. "When I woke up, they told me 1 child died." Felix's chest tightened. "They said the boy did not survive," Mama Felicia whispered. "They buried him quickly. I cried for months." Felicia covered her mouth. "But something never felt right," Mama Felicia said. "A mother knows." Felix's head felt light. Felicia's voice shook. I think," Mama Felicia interrupted gently, "that my son did not die." Felix stared at the floor. My son. That word again. He wanted to run. He wanted to laugh. He wanted to scream that this could not be his life. Felicia reached for his shoulder. "Felix, if this is true..." He shook his head quickly. "Please, I need time." She nodded. "I understand." They fell silent again. Minutes passed, then hours. Finally, a nurse appeared at the door. "Doctor will see you now." Felix stood on legs that did not feel like his own. Inside the office, the doctor sat with a file in front of him. He adjusted his glasses and looked at them one by one. Felix's heart beat so loud he thought everyone could hear it. The doctor cleared his throat. "The results are conclusive," he said. Mama Felicia squeezed Felix's hand. Felicia held her breath. The doctor spoke slowly, carefully. "The DNA confirms that Felix and Felicia are siblings." The room broke. Mama Felicia cried out loudly, her body folding as years of pain rushed out of her all at once. Felicia's tears came fast and heavy. Felix didn't cry at first. He couldn't. The words felt unreal. Siblings, twins, family. Then Mama Felicia pulled him into her arms. "My son," she cried. "My son, forgive me." Felix felt his chest crack open. He cried then, not loud, deep, the kind of cry that comes from a place words cannot reach. Felicia knelt beside them, holding both of them. "We are together now," she whispered. "We are together." For a long time, nobody spoke, because some truths silence the mouth before they free the heart. When they stepped outside, the sun was already low. Felix sat in the SUV again, but this time felt different. Mama Felicia leaned her head on his shoulder. Felicia watched them through the mirror, tears still on her cheeks. "This is your home now," Felicia said softly, "if you want it." Felix swallowed. "I don't know how to be this person," he said honestly. Felicia nodded. "We'll learn together." As they drove into Lagos, Felix stared out the window. Tall buildings, bright lights, cars that never seemed to rest, a world he had never belonged to. Yet somehow, blood had carried him here. They arrived at the mansion quietly. Security stood straighter when they saw Mama Felicia. "Welcome back, Mama." Inside, everything looked unreal to Felix. Marble floors, large paintings, soft couches. Felicia turned to the head of security. "Review the CCTV from the day Mama disappeared." The man nodded and left. Felix sat on the edge of a couch, afraid to lean fully. Mama Felicia went to change. Felicia sat beside Felix. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm scared," he admitted. She smiled sadly. "So am I." Moments later, the head of security returned. "We found something," he said. They followed him into a small control room. The screen showed the mansion gate. Mama Felicia appeared, stepping out. Then two men. Fast, rough. Felix's stomach turned. The men forced her into a vehicle. The camera zoomed on their faces. Felicia's eyes hardened. "Pause," she said. The screen froze. Felix leaned forward. He recognized one face. Not from Lagos, from the village. The same man who once asked him strange questions near the farm months ago. Felix's blood ran cold. "I know him," Felix said. Felicia turned sharply. "You do?" Felix nodded slowly. "I've seen him. Before." Felicia straightened. "Find them." The room filled with quiet orders. Phones rang. Instructions were given. The machine of power began to move. That night, Felix could not sleep. The bed was too soft. The room too quiet. His mind replayed everything. Mama Felicia visited his room quietly. She sat beside him. "I lost you once," she said softly. "I won't lose you again." Felix nodded, unable to speak. She touched his hand gently. "Rest." He closed his eyes, but sleep did not come easily. Because somewhere out there, men were being hunted, and the truth they carried could shake the past. At exactly 2:13 a.m., Felicia's phone rang. She answered, then she stood up slowly. "They've been arrested," she said. Felix's heart dropped. "But they are saying something else," she continued. Her voice went quiet. "They say they didn't act alone." Felix did not sleep at all that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the bush again, the yellow lace, the cracked lips. The whisper, "Please save me." Now the whisper had changed. It was louder. It carried names. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the phone rang again. Felicia answered this time with her back straight, already awake. She did not say hello. She did not ask questions. She listened. Her face tightened. Not with fear, with focus. When the call ended, the room felt colder. "They are talking," she said. Mama Felicia sat up slowly in her chair. Felix leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "What are they saying?" Mama asked. Felicia exhaled. "They said they were paid. They said the order came from someone powerful." Felix's chest thumped. Who? Felicia did not answer immediately. She walked to the window and looked out at the quiet compound. The guards were still. The lights were still. Lagos never truly slept, but this house felt like it was holding its breath. They asked for a lawyer, Felicia said finally. But before that, one name slipped. Mama Felicia's hands began to shake. Felix noticed first. He moved closer and held them. What name? Mama asked, her voice small. Felicia turned back. Chief Ambrose. The name landed like thunder. Mama Felicia gasped. Felix felt confused. Who is that? Felicia's jaw tightened. A top politician. Old power, old money. A man who never forgets a rivalry. Mama Felicia's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were not soft tears. They were angry. She whispered, God. Felix looked from one woman to the other. Why would a politician kidnap an old woman? Silence answered him. Then Mama Felicia spoke. Because of your father. Felix froze. My father, he repeated. Mama Felicia nodded slowly. Adam. Felicia sat down hard. He was my husband, Mama Felicia continued, and Ambrose's enemy. Felix's head spun. Enemy, how? Mama Felicia closed her eyes. Adam and Ambrose contested for the same position, she said. Years ago, Adam was winning. The people loved him. He spoke truth. He refused bribes. Felicia clenched her fists. And then Papa died. Felix looked up sharply. Died. Mama Felicia opened her eyes. They said it was an accident, a robbery gone wrong. Her voice broke. Now I know it was not. Felix felt sick. So they stole me, he said slowly, to hurt him. Mama Felicia nodded. To weaken him, to destroy him, to silence him. Felix stood up suddenly. His legs trembled. My whole life, he whispered. My whole life was a lie. Felicia stood too. Not a lie, she said firmly. A theft, she placed a hand on his shoulder, and stolen things can be recovered. By morning, the house was busy. Phones rang, cars moved in and out, lawyers arrived, security increased. Felix watched it all like someone watching a movie where he did not know his role. Mama Felicia sat quietly, praying under her breath. Felicia moved like a general. She went to the police station herself. Felix wanted to go, but she stopped him. Not yet, she said. You've carried enough. At the station, the air was thick. The two men sat in a small room. Their confidence from the CCTV footage was gone. Sweat ran down their faces. Felicia entered calmly. She did not shout. She did not threaten. She simply sat. Tell me the truth, she said. One of the men laughed nervously. Madam, we've told you. We were paid. By who? Felicia asked. They hesitated. Felicia leaned forward slightly. I already know the name. I want to hear it from you. Silence. Then the other man spoke, his voice shaking. Chief Ambrose. The room felt smaller. Felicia nodded once. How much? 5 million, the man said quickly. He said we should scare her, dump her. He didn't say kill. Felicia's eyes flashed. You left an old woman to die in a bush. The man dropped his head. Felicia stood up. You will say everything again, on record. As she walked out, she did not look back. Because now she was not just a daughter. She was a witness. Back at the mansion, Felix waited. When Felicia returned, he stood up immediately. It's true, she said. They confessed. Felix closed his eyes. Mama Felicia let out a long cry. Not loud, just deep. Felix hugged her. They took my son, she said. They killed my husband. Felix held her tighter. They won't take us again. Felicia watched them, her eyes shining. This is not just our story anymore, she said. It's the law's story now. She turned to the head of security. Prepare everything, records, dates, hospital files, orphanage documents. The man nodded. Felix blinked. Orphanage? Felicia turned to him gently. We need to prove how you disappeared, and where you went. Felix nodded. For the first time, he felt something solid rise inside him, not anger, not revenge, purpose. That evening, Mama Felicia asked Felix to sit with her. They sat under a soft light. I used to dream about you, she said, even when they said you were dead. Felix swallowed. I dreamed about a woman I couldn't see. She was always calling my name. Mama Felicia covered her mouth. Felicia watched from the doorway, tears on her cheeks. Blood remembers, Mama Felicia whispered. News started to spread quietly, not on TV yet, but in offices, in corridors, in places where power listened. Chief Ambrose heard too. He laughed at first. A farmer, he scoffed. An old woman. Then his lawyer came in, pale. They have CCTV, the lawyer said, and confessions. Ambrose's smile faded. Fix it, he snapped. The lawyer hesitated. Madame Felicia is involved. Ambrose stood up slowly. That woman, he muttered. She never forgave. His phone rang. He ignored it. Then it rang again. This time, he answered. His face changed. Good evening, Chief, a calm voice said. This is the police. Ambrose's hand tightened around the phone. We would like to ask you a few questions. At the mansion, Felix watched the night sky. Felicia joined him. You okay? She asked. I'm learning, he said honestly. Learning who I am. She smiled. That's enough for now. A message came in on her phone. She read it. Her eyes hardened again. They are bringing him in, she said. Felix turned. Chief Ambrose? Yes. Mama Felicia appeared behind them. She looked tired, but ready. As the gates of the police station closed behind Chief Ambrose, he turned his head slowly and smiled, because he knew something they didn't, something buried deeper than the bush, something that could still destroy them all. Chief Ambrose's smile stayed on his face as the police car moved. It was a dangerous smile. Felix watched the footage later and felt a chill crawl up his spine. That is not the smile of an innocent man, he said softly. Felicia nodded. That is the smile of someone who thinks he still has control. The next morning, the house was silent. Felix sat at the dining table, staring at food he had not touched. The plates were full. His stomach was empty anyway. Mama Felicia sat across from him, her hands folded, eyes closed in prayer. Felicia paced slowly, phone pressed to her ear. Yes, we will be there, she said. Make sure everything is documented. She ended the call and turned to Felix. Today is important, she said. Whatever happens, you stay calm. Felix nodded. I'll try. Mama Felicia opened her eyes. We have waited many years, she said. We can wait one more day. Felix reached for her hand. I'm not afraid anymore, he said. Just want the truth to be loud. The courtroom in Lokoja was already full when they arrived. People whispered. Phones were hidden but ready. This was not just a case anymore. It was a story people had waited to hear. Felix walked in between Felicia and Mama Felicia. Cameras clicked quietly. He felt strange wearing a clean shirt, new sandals, his hair neatly trimmed. This is still me, he reminded himself, farmer or not. Chief Ambrose was already seated. He wore a white native outfit. Clean, ironed, expensive. He looked calm. Too calm. When his eyes met Felix's, he raised an eyebrow slightly. Felix's chest tightened. Felicia leaned closer. Don't look at him, she whispered. Look forward. The judge entered. The room stood. The case began. The first witness was the driver, then the security guard, then the two men. Felix listened as they spoke. Their voices shook. They told the same story again and again. The instruction came from Chief Ambrose. He paid us. He said we should leave her where nobody would find her. The courtroom buzzed. Chief Ambrose leaned back in his chair. When it was his turn, he stood slowly. His lawyer spoke first. Convincing words, long sentences, doubt planted carefully. Then Ambrose stepped forward. I deny all allegations, he said calmly. This is a setup. I have enemies. Felix felt anger rise in his chest. Mama Felicia's hand tightened around his. Then the orphanage records were brought out. Dates, names, signatures. Felix leaned forward. His name was there, but his surname was wrong. Felicia stood. My mother gave birth to twins on this date, she said. Hospital records confirm it. The judge adjusted his glasses. The nurse was called, an old woman now. Her hands shook as she spoke. I was paid, she whispered. They said the baby must disappear. The room gasped. Chief Ambrose's face changed, just for 1 second. Felix, saw it. He saw fear in his face for the first time. When Mama Felicia stood to speak, the room went quiet. Her voice was soft, but steady. "I lost my son," she said, "or so I was told." Her eyes filled with tears. "I buried an empty grief. I buried it every day for years." She turned toward Ambrose. "You stole my child, you killed my husband, and you left me alive to suffer." Felix felt his chest burn. Ambrose stood suddenly. "Enough," he shouted. "This is lies." The judge slammed the gavel. "Order!" Felicia stood. "Your Honor," she said, "we request the DNA evidence." The results were displayed, clear, undeniable. Felix watched the judge's face harden. Chief Ambrose's lawyer whispered urgently to him. Ambrose's jaw clenched. Then something unexpected happened. He laughed. "You want the truth?" he said loudly. "Fine." The room froze. Felix's breath stopped. Ambrose turned slowly. "I arranged it," he said. "Yes." Gasps filled the room. "I arranged everything." Mama Felicia cried out. Felix stood up without realizing it. Ambrose continued, his voice bitter. "Adam was in my way. He wanted to change things. I removed him." Felicia felt like the air had left her lungs. "And the boy," Ambrose added. "Insurance. Power needs sacrifice." Felix felt dizzy. "But I didn't plan for him to live," Ambrose sneered. "Funny how life works." The judge stood. "You have confessed," he said firmly. "This court will not ignore that." Ambrose's smile disappeared. For the first time, he looked small. Outside the courtroom, reporters gathered. Microphones pushed forward. Felicia spoke briefly. "This is about justice," she said, "not revenge." Felix stood beside her. Mama Felicia leaned on both of them, but inside Felix's chest, something still burned. Not anger, something unfinished. That night back at the mansion, Felix sat alone. He replayed Ambrose's words. Insurance, sacrifice. Felicia joined him quietly. "He confessed," she said. "That matters." Felix nodded slowly, but he smiled when he was arrested. And he smiled again today. Felicia frowned. "You think something is coming?" Felix looked up. "I think evil doesn't surrender easily." Felicia's phone buzzed. She read the message. Her face went pale. "What?" Felix asked. She looked at him slowly. "There's another name," she said. Felix's heart dropped. Another name tied to the hospital and the orphanage. Mama Felicia appeared in the doorway. Her voice shook. "What name?" Felicia swallowed. The nurse wasn't acting alone. The room went silent because the story was not finished. Not yet. Felix stood up slowly. His hands trembled. "If they stole me once," he said quietly, "how many other children did they steal?" Felicia looked at him, and, in her eyes, Felix saw the truth. This case was much bigger than their family. Felix's question stayed in the room long after he asked it. "If they stole me once, how many other children did they steal?" Nobody answered immediately. The walls of the living room felt closer. The air felt heavier, like the house itself was listening. Felicia was the first to speak. "That is exactly why we cannot stop now," she said quietly. Mama Felicia sat down slowly, as if her body had suddenly remembered all the years she had carried pain without rest. "I used to think my suffering was personal," she whispered. "But what if it was planned? What if it was a system?" Felix rubbed his hands together. His birthmark flashed briefly under the light. For the first time since discovering who he was, anger rose properly inside him. The next morning, Felix followed Felicia into her study. It was a large room with shelves of files, books, framed photos, and awards. Felix felt small inside it, like he didn't belong there yet. Felicia pulled out a thick folder and dropped it on the table. "These are orphanage and hospital records from the last 35 years, she said. "We started quietly, no media, no noise." Felix's eyes widened. "That's a lot of years," Felicia nodded. "That's how long power likes to hide." Mama Felicia sat beside Felix. "We checked dates around elections," Felicia continued, "times when politicians were desperate, when enemies needed to be removed quietly." Felix swallowed. "And?" he asked. Felicia opened the folder. "Missing children, sudden stillbirths, babies declared dead without bodies." nurses transferred suddenly, orphanage intakes without proper records. Felix felt sick. These were human lives, he said. Yes, Felicia replied, and they were treated like paperwork. They started with the nurse. The same nurse who had testified. She was brought in again, this time without cameras, without crowd. She was older now, weaker. Her shoulders bent like they carried too much memory. Felicia placed a recorder on the table. No shouting, Felicia said, just the truth. The nurse nodded, tears already running. I didn't know it would become this, she said. At first it was one child, then another. They said it was for protection. Protection of who? Felix asked softly. The nurse looked at him. Men with power, she whispered. She talked slowly, about a network, about doctors who signed papers without asking questions, about orphanages paid to accept babies without names, about politicians who wanted no weaknesses. Felix closed his eyes. Each word felt like a stone dropped on his chest. How many? Felicia asked. The nurse shook her head. I lost count. Mama Felicia covered her mouth and cried. Felix didn't cry. He stood up instead. This doesn't end with prison, he said quietly. It ends with truth. Felicia watched him closely. You're changing, she said. Felix nodded. I have to. They traveled next, not with sirens, not with press, quietly. Felix insisted on going. They visited an old orphanage outside Ibadan, dusty and forgotten. The director recognized Felix's name. I remember you, the man said slowly. You never cried much. Felix blinked. I didn't know how. The man led them to old records. Felix stared at faded pages, names crossed out, dates rewritten. Mama Felicia leaned against the wall. Felicia took photos. Outside, Felix sat on a bench under a mango tree. A boy around 9 years old sat beside him. Uncle, the boy said, why are you sad? Felix looked at him. Do you know your parents? Felix asked gently. The boy shook his head. They said they died. Felix's chest tightened. He forced a small smile. What do you want to be when you grow up? A mechanic, the boy said quickly. I like engines. Felix laughed softly. Me too, he said. On the drive back, nobody spoke. The sun dipped low, painting the road gold. Felix broke the silence. I don't want revenge, he said. I want repair. Felicia nodded. That's harder. Mama Felicia held both their hands. We will do it together, she said. Chief Ambrose was watching the news from his cell. He smiled when he saw Felix's face briefly on screen. So the boy survived, he muttered. A guard opened the cell door. You have a visitor. Ambrose straightened. It was his lawyer. They're opening more cases, the lawyer whispered urgently. This thing is spreading. Ambrose's smile faded. They won't touch me, he said. The lawyer hesitated. Sir, other names are coming up. Ambrose's eyes darkened. Then burn it all, he snapped. If I fall, others fall. That night, Felix couldn't sleep again. He sat in the workshop Felicia had arranged temporarily for him. Small, clean, quiet. He touched an engine part gently. Metal didn't lie. People did. Mama Felicia came in quietly. I'm proud of you, she said. Felix looked up. I'm scared too. She nodded. Courage is not the absence of fear. Felix smiled faintly. You sound like my mother. She laughed through tears. I am your mother. They hugged. Felicia stood at the doorway watching them. Her phone buzzed. She read the message. Her face hardened. What is it? Felix asked. Felicia took a breath. They found records linking Ambrose to 3 other politicians. Felix's stomach dropped. Alive? Yes, Felicia said, and powerful. Mama Felicia whispered, God help us. Felix straightened. No, he said quietly. God already did. Now it's our turn. Felicia studied him. You're ready for this? Felix nodded. I've been ready my whole life. I just didn't know it. The next day, Felix stood before a group of journalists for the first time. His hands shook. Felicia stood beside him. Mama Felicia sat behind them. Felix spoke slowly. I was stolen as a baby, he said, but I was not the only one. Cameras clicked. My life was broken, he continued, but it was not destroyed. His voice cracked slightly. We are looking for the children no one looked for." Silence followed, then applause. Somewhere, inside a dark cell, Chief Ambrose smashed his fist against the wall. Late that night, a sealed envelope was delivered to the mansion. No name, no return address. Felicia opened it. Inside was a single photograph, a newborn baby, with the same curved birthmark on the wrist, and written beneath it in red ink, "This one is still missing." The photograph stayed on the table all night. Felicia did not sleep. Felix did not move it. Mama Felicia prayed until her voice became a whisper. The baby in the picture was tiny, wrapped in a white cloth. One wrist turned outward. The birthmark was clear, the same curved shape, the same silent signature. "This is not a threat," Felicia said finally, her voice steady but tired. "It's a challenge." Felix nodded. "And an invitation." Mama Felicia looked at him. "To do what, my son?" Felix took a deep breath. "To finish what they started. The right way." By morning, the mansion was alive again, but this time the energy felt different. Not fear, not anger, resolve. Felicia called her legal team, child protection agencies, and independent investigators. She did not hide behind power. She opened doors instead. "We are not hunting people," she said clearly. "We are finding children." The story moved fast after that. Hospitals across states were audited. Old nurses were questioned. Orphanages were reviewed. Quietly, carefully, with dignity. Felix insisted on being present whenever possible, not as a billionaire's brother, as someone who understood what it felt like to grow up without answers. They found the baby in the photograph 3 days later. Not hidden in a dungeon, not locked away, just misplaced. She was living with a family in Ilorin, raised as their niece. The woman who had taken her had been paid years ago and told the child's parents had died. The girl was now 8 years old. Her name was Aisha. When Felix met her, she stared at him with curious eyes. "You look like me," she said. Felix smiled softly. "A little." She pointed at his wrist. "You have that too." Felix's chest tightened. "Yes," he said, "I do." Mama Felicia knelt and held the child gently. "No one is taking you away from love," she said. "We are only adding more." The woman who raised Aisha cried. "I didn't know," she kept saying. "I swear I didn't know." Felicia believed her. Not every wrong came from evil. Some came from ignorance wrapped in fear. They did not tear the child's life apart. They expanded it. When the final court judgment came, the courtroom was quiet. Not dramatic, not loud, just heavy. Chief Ambrose stood again, but this time there was no smile. The judge spoke slowly, clearly. "For crimes including conspiracy, child abduction, murder, and abuse of political power, this court sentences Chief Ambrose to life imprisonment with hard labor, without parole." The room exhaled. Felix felt Mama Felicia's hand shake. Felicia closed her eyes. The 2 men who carried Mama Felicia into the bush received the same sentence. Other names followed. Not all were arrested. Some lost titles. Some lost positions. Some lost sleep. But the silence they depended on was gone. Life did not turn into a movie ending. It became quieter, truer. Felix chose not to move into the main mansion immediately. He asked for something else. "I want to learn," he said, "not just receive." Felicia smiled. "What do you want to learn?" "Automobiles," Felix answered without hesitation. "I've always understood machines. They respond to care." Felicia nodded. "Then you will learn properly." Felix trained. Morning to night. Hands stained with oil again, but this time with guidance, tools, and time. Mama Felicia visited often, sitting nearby, watching him work. Sometimes she cried quietly. Not from sadness. From relief. Years of planning turned into months of building. And then, one morning, Felix stood in front of a large gate in Lagos. The sign above read, "Felix Automotive and Tech Hub." Young apprentices stood around, nervous and excited. Felicia stood beside him, elegant as always. Mama Felicia stood between them, dressed simply, her eyes wet. Felix took the microphone. He paused, long enough for the crowd to feel it. "I was once denied a childhood," he said. Not because my mother didn't want me, but because power wanted silence. The crowd was quiet. This place is not just a workshop, he continued. It's a second chance. He looked at the young people. If your life was interrupted, you belong here. Applause rose, not wild but deep. Mama Felicia covered her mouth. Felicia held her hand. Later that evening, they sat together in the courtyard. No cameras, no speeches, just 3 people who had lost, found, and healed. I never thought I would live to see this, Mama Felicia said softly. Both my children, alive, whole. Felix smiled. We are still learning. Felicia nodded. But we are together. Mama Felicia reached for both their hands and placed them on her lap. I used to think destiny was cruel, she said. Now I know it was patient. Felix looked at the stars. They were bright, unbothered. The end did not come with fireworks, it came with peace. And sometimes, that is the strongest ending of all. This story teaches that kindness is not small. It only looks small when measured against power. It teaches that evil often hides behind systems, not faces. That truth does not rush, but it never forgets. Felix teaches us that your beginning does not define your worth. Mama Felicia teaches us that a mother's intuition is stronger than lies. Felicia teaches us that power can heal when it chooses justice over revenge. And together they teach us that what is stolen can be returned, what is broken can be repaired, and a single act of courage, even walking into a bush because you heard a cry, can rewrite generations. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.